German military uniforms during World War II. German weapons were renowned for their formidable firepower and exquisite design. But aside from weapons, there is another thing that is often mentioned. That is the German military uniform. Many people find the German military uniforms of World War II exceptionally handsome. This involves Germany's propaganda system and military-industrial aesthetics. Not a coincidence, but deliberately designed to demonstrate the majesty and inviolability of the Third Reich. Therefore, military uniforms were also regarded as a display tool of the Empire's will. Even at great cost, German military uniforms were made the most meticulously designed and symbolic among all nations during World War II, the most exquisite and symbolic military uniform. However, there have always been two false rumors about German military uniforms. The first is that Hitler personally designed the German military uniforms. In fact, World War II German military uniforms had little to do with Hitler. The most iconic black uniform of the SS, Schutzstaffel, meaning protection squadron. The black uniform was designed by a German artist who was also an SS officer. It was designed by Karl Diebitsch. He designed the all-black uniform for the SS.
Erlauben wir zum ersten Mal als unbekannter Einzelner diesen Krieg zu beginnen. Wollen nicht lesen, wollen nicht spenden!
The Prussians were born with a strong militaristic mindset, emphasizing order and standardization. Since the time of Frederick I, the Kingdom of Prussia had standardized military parade drills. Drill formations and military standardization became the origin of modern military parades, and for the sake of parade grandeur, the Prussians began to study the design of military uniforms. They believed that soldiers were the cornerstone of the nation, and military uniforms are the face of the nation. Prussian military uniforms extensively used metal ornaments, stand-up collars with meticulous tailoring and fine embroidery, pursuing a sharp and neat appearance. The most iconic feature is their spiked helmet, the helmet with a spike on top. This became the hallmark of Prussian soldiers. It remained in use until World War I. There is a very famous photo of a spiked helmet. Its wearer was the Iron Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck. Now, in honor guards around the world, many still retain the design of the spiked helmet because it makes the wearer appear imposing and upright. With this aesthetic heritage, the uniforms of the German Wehrmacht in World War II had already formed their own system. It inherited the field grey system from the Weimar Republic era of World War I. More emphasis on practicality and functionality, eliminated the ornate decorations of Prussian military uniforms, but retained the standing collar, epaulettes, and tailoring. When Germany rebuilt its military in 1935, the military uniforms were uniformly designed, procured, and issued by the Army Uniform Office, which is the M-series military uniform style derived from Germany's Bauhaus design, a product of the evolution of traditional German military uniforms. The most famous is the M36 model, grey-green crystalline, reduced the number of buttons. The skirt was shorter, the cut is more fitted, because Germany had already adopted mechanized warfare at that time. The shorter jacket was less likely to get stained by dirt from vehicle seats. Subsequent models were all improvements based on the M36 field uniform. Developed models such as the M38, M40, and models like M43. Among them, the early M36 and M38 uniforms were the most meticulously designed. Because Germany was actively preparing for war at that time, every aspect strove for perfection. Even police uniforms were no exception, such as this M38 Ordnungspolizei officer uniform. It adopted a grey-green fabric. The cuffs and collar are made of velvet. The back hem features a swallowtail and vent design. This originated from Prussian-era cavalry uniforms, designed to facilitate mounting, and has been preserved to this day. At that time, junior officers could be issued a decorative uniform. for certain ceremonial occasions, while senior officers could be issued a white ceremonial uniform, but most soldiers had to purchase their dress uniforms at their own expense. If encountering occasions such as weddings, soldiers could borrow a dress uniform from the military supply depot. Military uniform for weddings. Don't think the German military only provided coats for their soldiers. They even considered the undergarments, such as this Wehrmacht wool sweater. Each Wehrmacht soldier was issued a grey wool V-neck. The style is clean and neat. On formal occasions, for example, the uniforms for parade ceremonies were made with even greater craftsmanship, such as this 1939 Wehrmacht parade dress uniform. It adopted the stand collar guard style. The cuffs are adorned with Swedish cavalry decorations, silver-plated buttons. The hemline exudes a commanding presence, symbolizing the most elite infantry unit of the army. In the Wehrmacht's uniform system, there are also a large number of specialized and functional uniforms for various scenarios, such as this army motorcycle rider's protective overcoat, waterproof and windproof. The fabric is lightweight and comfortable, with large pockets for storing firearms. This German Navy submarine leather overalls, designed for harsh underwater conditions. The tropical combat uniform for the army was made of khaki cotton fabric, durable and dirt resistant. The color blends into the mountainous terrain. The armored forces sergeant's uniform was made of green herringbone twill fabric, motorcycle jacket style, highly suitable for battlefield environments. It can be extended through the front opening, highly practical, and also gives off a sense of majesty. The reason why German military uniforms look good also lies in the various badges on their uniforms, such as the silver grey on the army uniform. This silver grey insignia is highly recognizable and has become one of the symbols of the German military uniform. Additionally, on officers' caps, there is a metallic silver grey emblem, while ordinary army soldiers wore field uniforms, wearing the M35 steel helmet. The helmet also features a water transfer printed shield-shaped silver grey decal to distinguish between friend and foe. In some German officer uniforms, you can also see some individuals wearing a highly conspicuous cross-shaped insignia. This is the core honor of the German military decoration system. The Iron Cross was also inherited from the Prussian army. Was established at that time to oppose the Napoleonic Wars. It was awarded to mid-level or higher officers in the German military, or frontline soldiers who performed exceptionally well could receive this honor. It is divided into 8 levels. The highest rank is the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. Only 7,000 soldiers were awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross during World War II, accounting for less than 0.2% of the total German military personnel. The Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with golden oak leaves, swords and diamonds was historically awarded to only one individual. He was Germany's ace pilot, Hans Ulrich Rudel. He could be considered the world's greatest pilot, bar none. He did not take a single day off during his 6 years of combat. He conducted one sortie per day on the Eastern Front. A total of 519 Soviet tanks were destroyed and nearly 1,000 other vehicles. These tanks were enough to equip 5 complete Soviet armored brigades. He was also shot down more than 30 times. After being shot down, we will specifically talk about this legendary pilot. Another commonly seen feature is the decorative pouch on German military uniforms. This is a decorative accessory worn on formal occasion uniforms. It was also inherited. The Prussian military uniform was essentially an ornamental design, primarily worn during military parades. It has now become a standard feature of military uniforms worldwide. Before the outbreak of war in 1938, Germany had already manifested in the details, revealing that terrifying sense of order. Not only military uniforms, even the uniforms of government administrative officials were meticulously maintained, such as this Third Reich National Forestry Officers' Service uniform, made of forest green wool fabric, precisely tailored, precise lines, and paired with an exquisite forestry engineer's dagger. When this aesthetic and industrial system was incorporated into the war machine, the efficiency displayed decade is indeed chilling, and the pinnacle of German military uniform aesthetics was reached with "It still has to be the Nazi SS uniform." There were dozens of countries involved in World War II. Military uniform designs flourished in various countries, but none can be considered classic. If we set aside the acts of war, from a purely clothing design perspective, German military uniform design, particularly the SS uniforms, were undoubtedly quite successful. There is a rumor that the German military uniforms were designed by Hitler himself. This is actually a misconception, as is well known, although Hitler was a rejected art student, but possessed a distinctive and obsessive aesthetic sense. He was involved in the design of multiple weapons, such as the world's largest artillery, the Gustav railway gun, the renowned V-1 and V-2 missiles, the world's first jet fighter, the M1262 Maus super heavy tank. However, Hitler did not personally design these weapons, but frequently intervened in the design process and made some unrealistic demands, which resulted in these weapons being advanced, but their actual combat effectiveness was mediocre. As for German military uniforms, Hitler did not participate in the design, but he did indeed put forward requirements. As early as 1932, he summoned Himmler to design uniforms for the SS Leibstandarte, this private guard, as a fanatical organization loyal to Hitler. Hitler believed that more dignified uniforms were necessary to establish his own authority. Thus, Hitler's most loyal henchman and SS leader, Himmler, began actively promoting the design of SS uniforms. SS, we know it was within the German military, a mysterious organization that struck fear into people's hearts. The codename is SS, also the abbreviation for the German Schutzstaffel. The emblem is a lightning bolt composed of SS, representing the Schutzstaffel. It was initially established in 1925 as Hitler's personal bodyguard. It rapidly expanded under Himmler's leadership and became a specialized intelligence gathering unit. After the outbreak of war, extremely powerful, the SS designed independent uniforms. Another reason was it was uncontrollable. Thus, Hitler intentionally supported the SS to replace the SA. Himmler proposed designing black uniforms to distinguish them from the brown uniforms of the SA. With Hitler's approval, in 1932, Himmler found his personal art consultant, a German artist, also a junior officer in the SS, Karl Diebitsch. He designed many exclusive accessories for Himmler, such as accessory rings, buckles, and a graphic designer named Walter Heck. The three of them jointly finalized the design of the SS uniform. Karl Diebitsch drew inspiration from the cavalry guards of the Prussian king and from military uniforms, with black as the primary color, along with ornate collar tabs and epaulette embroidery, visually striking. This is the most classic M32 service uniform of the SS, and also one of the most iconic uniforms of the Nazi regime. For instance, Himmler wore this M32 black long coat all year round, constantly creating a sense of solemnity. Subsequently, a series of SS uniforms adopted the black base color. Even among the array of uniforms in the German Wehrmacht, this visual symbol was also extremely striking. Heinrich Himmler and his personal art consultant Karl Diebitsch indeed created an extremely successful visual symbol. What's particularly distinctive is the SSM32 dress uniform. Only one side has an epaulette, rather than the common military uniform where both sides have shoulder boards. This is because SS ranks were identified by collar insignia, rather than epaulettes. The main function of the epaulette was to secure the diagonally slung belt, purely a functional component. It was not until later, when the SS joined the Wehrmacht in combat, that they adopted double shoulder boards. Of course, the uniforms of the SS were not entirely black, such as in summer, officers would wear a white tunic. The fabric would also be chosen to be lighter and more breathable. The impression the SS left on posterity: there is a symbol that instantly associates them with terror. This is the SS skull emblem. In fact, this emblem originally originated from the Kingdom of Prussia, Frederick I's Royal Guard Cavalry Regiment. The skull emblem was used on their caps. Later, the SS adopted this skull symbol again. At that time, soldiers selected for the SS after becoming a certified member needed to recite a phrase. that is, we wear the skull insignia on our black caps to warn our enemies and swear allegiance to our Führer. We are always ready to sacrifice our lives to realize his ideals. This demonstrates the loyalty and fanaticism of the SS. Another representative design of the SS was the double lightning bolt emblem. In 1932, a part-time designer under Karl Diebitsch accidentally juxtaposed the two SS letters together. Himmler immediately agreed after seeing it. From then on, the SS double lightning bolt design was applied to various uniforms and equipment of the SS under Himmler's promotion. The SS continued to expand. In 1938, it gained its own armed forces, also known as the Waffen-SS, also known as SS members, who were all Nazi Party followers, workers, police, students, and fanatics. Among them, the Imperial Division and the Death's Head Division were exceptionally fierce in combat, with a strong political stance, daring to fight and charge. However, in the early stages, the SS was looked down upon by the Wehrmacht. The missions carried out were also in some secondary battlefields. Due to the need to adapt to battlefield conditions, the SSM 38 Field Service uniform was thus designed. This color is the same as that of the Army's M36 uniform. Because Himmler wanted to distance himself from the colors of the police force at that time, he sought to align the color with that of the Army. But the SS uniforms had superior design and tailoring, and could make people appear more upright. The SS often maintained a so-called Aryan purity, pure blood and noble genes, such as this white velvet dress for formal occasions like banquets, as well as the standard greatcoat for senior SS officers. The combination of black, white, and red creates a strong visual impact. There was even a military uniform with a tailcoat-style jacket, essentially representing the highest standard in the realm of suits. The black uniforms of the SS combined military precision with ideological symbolism. They could weaken individual consciousness and strengthen collective order. The uniforms incorporated various special designs, such as the skull-grey diamond-shaped collar tabs and the SS armband insignia. Everything was designed to create a visual deterrent, to make the wearer appear cold and unapproachable in public, thereby achieving the purpose of legitimizing power through appearance. Setting aside the crimes and wartime actions of the Nazis, from the perspective of clothing design and semiotics alone, it is the finest military uniform in history. In early photographs or portraits of Hitler, you'll often find him wearing a khaki brown shirt and tied with a black tie. This combination now appears somewhat childish and ridiculous. This is because in 1920, the Nazi Party was still a far-right fringe group in Germany. No people and no money, let alone designing formal uniforms. In order to unify the group's attire, they found a batch of items in an abandoned military warehouse in Germany, originally intended for the German colonial troops in Africa during World War I. Brown tropical shirts. The brown color was entirely designed to adapt to the desert environment of Africa, so they bought them at a low price as the party uniform. This rather odd color was a necessary compromise. Compared to Italy's black shirts, the imposing presence was significantly weaker, so in the early years, the Nazi Party used brown shirts simply because they were poor. Post-World War I Germany was under severe sanctions from the Treaty of Versailles, economic despair, national humiliation, political violence. Society was extremely turbulent. This provided an opportunity for the small organization of the Nazi Party, created an opportunity to rise to prominence. It was composed of a group of extremely violent individuals. They took to the streets under the slogan of opposing Versailles, began engaging in street violence, interfering with elections, inciting emotions. Because they were all wearing brown shirts, they stood out conspicuously in the crowd, thus also known as the brown shirts. Hitler also frequently wore the brown shirt to show support for the SA stormtroopers. It can be said that the SA stormtroopers made significant contributions to the expansion of the Nazi Party. Although the SA was later purged, the Nazi Party also retained brown when selecting formal uniforms. This was determined by Hitler after 1920 as the standard uniform color for Nazi Party members. Hitler regarded this khaki brown color as the representative color of the party, symbolizing land, the people, and the spirit of struggle. This color was originally from unwanted military surplus, developed to represent the land and the people. Society was extremely turbulent. movement. This provided an opportunity for the small organization of the Nazi Party, created an opportunity to rise to prominence. It was composed of a group of extremely violent individuals. They took to the streets under the slogan of opposing Versailles, began engaging in street violence, interfering with elections, inciting emotions. Because they were all wearing brown shirts, they stood out conspicuously in the crowd, thus also known as the brown shirts. Hitler also frequently wore the brown shirt to show support for the SA stormtroopers. It can be said that the SA stormtroopers made significant contributions to the expansion of the Nazi Party. Although the SA was later purged, the Nazi Party also retained brown when selecting formal uniforms. This was determined by Hitler after 1920 as the standard uniform color for Nazi Party members. Hitler regarded this khaki-brown color as the representative color of the party, symbolizing land, the people, and the spirit of struggle. This color was originally from unwanted military surplus, developed to represent the land and the people. It is quite ironic. Hitler, at many public events, would always wear this brown Nazi Party uniform, without any epaulets or collar insignia. The medals were also extremely simple. He wore only 3 items all year round. 1. The World War I wound badge. 2. The Iron Cross First Class. 3. The Golden Nazi Party badge and the swastika armband. Unlike Goring and others, he did not like to wear numerous medals. He no longer relied on these to highlight his power. During battlefield inspections, Hitler would wear the Führer's field grey uniform. This was a high-end military uniform produced by the SS Senior Uniform Department. The fabric was more structured compared to the Wehrmacht uniform, finer texture. The wearing effect was excellent. In winter, Hitler would wear a standard Führer overcoat made by his personal tailor. The color was very beautiful. The grey-green double-breasted overcoat exuded authority. In summer, Hitler and senior Nazi officers would come to Bavaria, the Berghof Villa in Berchtesgaden. Hitler would wear the white summer Nazi Party uniform made of linen or lightweight wool, specially designed for warm climates. The white uniform stood out prominently among the grey-green officer uniforms. At the Wolf's Lair, Hitler was able to enjoy one of the rare leisure moments of the year. Even here, he still constantly discussed the war situation with his subordinates. Additionally, Hitler often wore a highly distinctive Führer's exclusive leather overcoat, dyed graphite-colored cowhide. This leather coat was not designed for warmth or combat purposes, but meticulously designed. Goring also stood out in terms of clothing. He was a close comrade of Hitler in his early years, but after gaining immense power, he began to rest on his laurels, devoted a great deal of energy to luxurious indulgences. Taking advantage of the German army's successive victories, he directly seized a large number of artworks from museums such as the Louvre. He was the largest private collector in Europe at that time, so he was also meticulous when it came to clothing. As a Luftwaffe field marshal, he seldom wore the standard blue-grey uniform of the Air Force. He preferred to wear a pearl-grey or pearl-white Nazi Party uniform, wearing 3 proud Iron Cross medals holding the diamond-encrusted Führer's scepter that symbolized the empire's power. He often preferred to wear white uniforms on many occasions to highlight his nobility. It is said he sometimes changed outfits several times a day just to attend different occasions. He had personalized requirements for the colors, fabrics, and details of the uniforms, and owned hundreds of bespoke uniforms and military attire. He was practically the fashion director of the Third Reich. Goring pursued strong personal identification and a sense of ceremony in clothing, stood in stark contrast to Hitler's minimalist restraint. However, Goring's conduct and dressing style were criticized within the German high command. Many people privately called him a bedazzled clown. There is a rumor that the German World War II military uniforms were designed by Hugo Boss. This is why German military uniforms look so good. In fact, this is inaccurate. Hugo Boss is a famous German fashion brand, but they did not design the German military uniforms. They only served as a subcontractor, producing some uniforms for the Nazis and SS. It's important to note that the German Wehrmacht and the Nazis and the reputation of the SS were different. After the war, the German Wehrmacht was considered professional soldiers. The traditional army. Many Wehrmacht soldiers were not Nazi party members. They were also ashamed to be associated with the Nazis. For example, the 1944 assassination attempt on Hitler was led by Stauffenberg and consisted of a group of Wehrmacht officers. This highlights the opposition between the Wehrmacht and the Nazi leadership. Therefore, after the war, numerous German clothing manufacturers that had produced uniforms for the Wehrmacht did not receive follow-up attention, while Hugo Boss, which manufactured uniforms for the Nazi Party and SS, was dug out. Long before the Nazi Party came to power, the uniforms of the Wehrmacht were all designed and procured by the military's prisoner of war bureau. After the Nazi Party came to power, they also began designing and producing specialized uniforms. But at that time, the Nazis had a poor reputation. Many large German uniform manufacturers refused to produce Nazi uniforms. Thus, the SS had to seek out small suppliers. Hugo Boss, which had only been established a few years at the time, was just a small factory in Metzingen, southern Germany, mainly producing workwear, raincoats, and overalls. It lacked resources and was also not well known, but its founder, Dr. Hugo, was himself a fervent Nazi Party member, so he actively aligned himself. Hugo Boss thus was selected by the Nazi uniform department as one of the suppliers. The orders included uniform components for the SA Sturmabteilung, the black uniform of the SS, and the uniforms of the Hitler Youth, among others. After the war, numerous companies that manufactured Nazi military uniforms as subcontractors deliberately concealed this history. Hugo Boss even deliberately avoided mentioning this incident in its brand history. For 50 years after the war, no one paid attention, until 1997. German scholars exposed this matter. For example, an advertising flyer published by Hugo Boss back then, labeled as producing for the SS-SA stormtroopers and the commissioned production of uniforms for the HJ Hitler Youth. These are indelible pieces of evidence. However, Hugo Boss denied it after the evidence was exposed, flatly denied it until 2011. A German writer, Roman Köster, published a biography of Hugo Boss. The book not only explained the history of Hugo Boss acting as a subcontractor for Nazi military uniforms, but also mentioned they employed 140 Polish laborers and 40 French laborers. This caused a huge uproar. Although it is true that Germany forced laborers to produce weapons during World War II, involving the Nazis itself is a major issue. Hugo Boss had to publicly apologize at that time and stated, "We deeply regret our involvement in the production of Nazi uniforms and deeply regret and apologize for the fact of forced labor." Later, Hugo Boss actively participated in compensating the descendants of forced laborers. The incident was then resolved. This is the Hugo Boss Nazi uniform incident. Although during World War II, German military uniforms are regarded as important specimens in the history of industrial design, when it comes to the Nazis, what first comes to mind is not aesthetics, but the atrocities of concentration camps and genocide. It is a dark chapter of history that cannot be avoided. Certain symbols and logos appearing in this episode may cause discomfort to some people. We discuss it not out of admiration, but rather to help everyone understand the stories behind these uniforms. Understanding history is to prevent tragedies from repeating themselves when aesthetics and authoritarianism combine. If we lose reverence for humanity, it is no longer design, but a shell of fear and extermination. If you found this video interesting, follow, like, and favorite. I will continue to produce more high quality videos. Well, that's all for this video. Thank you for following Brother Shauhan. See you in the next episode. Peace.